I love all the tangents we took, but let's return to the beginning.
Mhm.
What's the origin story of Perplexity?
Yeah, so I got together with my co-founders, Dennis and Johnny, and all we wanted to do was build cool products with LLMs. It was a time when it wasn't clear where the value would be created. Is it in the model or is it in the product? But one thing was clear: these generative models that transcended from just being research projects to actual user-facing applications. GitHub Copilot was being used by a lot of people, and I was using it myself, and I saw a lot of people around me using it. Andrew Karpathy was using it. People were paying for it. So this was a moment unlike any other moment before where people were having AI companies where they would just keep collecting a lot of data, but then it would be a small part of something bigger. But for the first time, AI itself was the thing.
So to you, that was an inspiration, Copilot as a product.
Yeah.
So GitHub
GitHub
Copilot,
Copilot.
for people who don't know, it's assists you in programming.
Yeah.
It generates code for you.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you can just call it a fancy autocomplete. It's fine,
Yep.
except it actually worked at a deeper level than before.
Yeah.
And one property I wanted for a company I started was it has to be AI complete. This was something I took from Larry Page, which is you want to identify a problem where if you worked on it, you would benefit from the advances made in AI. The product would get better.
Yeah.
And because the product gets better, more people use it. And therefore, that helps you to create more data for the AI to get better. And that makes the product better. That creates the flywheel.
Mhm.
It's not easy to have this property. For most companies, don't have this property. That's why they're all struggling to identify where they can use AI. It should be obvious where you should be able to use AI. And there are two products that I feel truly nail this. One is Google Search, where any improvement in AI, semantic understanding, natural language processing improves the product, and like more data makes the embeddings better, things like that. Or self-driving cars, where more and more people drive, it's more data for you, and that makes the models better, the vision systems better, the behavior cloning better.
You're talking about self-driving cars, like the Tesla approach.
Anything, Waymo, Tesla, doesn't matter.
So anything that's doing the explicit collection of data.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I always wanted my startup also to be of this nature, where,
Yeah.
but it wasn't designed to work on consumer search itself. We started off as like searching over the first idea I pitched to the first investor who decided to fund us, Elon Gill. Hey, would love to disrupt Google, but I don't know how. But one thing I've been thinking is if people stop typing into the search bar and instead just ask what about whatever they see visually
Mhm.
through a glass.
Mhm.
I always liked the Google Glass vision. It was pretty cool.
Mhm.
And he just said, hey, look, focus. You're not going to be able to do this without a lot of money, a lot of people. Identify a wedge right now and create something, and then you can work towards the grander vision, which is very good advice. And that's when we decided, okay, how would it look like if we disrupted or created search experiences over things you couldn't search before? And we said, okay, tables, relational databases.
Mhm.
You couldn't search over them before, but now you can, because you can have a model that looks at your question, translates it to some SQL query, runs it against the database. You keep scraping it so that the database is up to date. Yeah, and you execute the query, pull up the records, and give you the answer.
So just to clarify, you couldn't query it before.
You couldn't ask questions like, who is Lex Friedman following that Elon Musk is also following?
So that's for the relation database behind Twitter, for example.
Correct.
So you can't ask natural language questions of a table. You
Correct.
have to come up with complicated SQL
Yeah,
queries.
all right. Like, most recent tweets that were liked by both Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos.
Okay.
You couldn't ask these questions before because you needed an AI to understand this at a semantic level, convert that into a structured query language, execute it against a database, pull up the records and render it, right?
Mhm.
But it was suddenly possible with advances like GitHub Copilot. You had code language models that were good. And so we decided we would identify this insight and go against search over, scrape a lot of data, put it into tables, and ask questions.
By generating SQL queries.
Correct. The reason we picked SQL was because we felt like the output entropy is lower. It's templatized.
Mhm.
There's only a few set of select, statements, count, all these things. And that way you don't have as much entropy as in generic Python code. But that insight turned out to be wrong, by the way.
Interesting. I'm actually now curious.
But
Both
remember
directions,
that,
how well does it work?
Remember that this was 2022,
Mhm.
before even you had 3.5 turbo.
Codec, right?
Correct.
Separate. It trained on a.
Yeah.
They're not general.
Just train on GitHub and some natural language.
Yep.
So it's almost like you should consider it was like programming with computers that had very little RAM.
Yeah.
So a lot of hard coding. Like my co-founders and I would just write a lot of templates ourselves for this query, this is a SQL, this query, this is a SQL. We would learn SQL ourselves. This is also why we built this generic question answering bot, because we didn't know SQL that well ourselves.
Yeah.
So and then we would do RAG. Given the query, we would pull up templates that were similar looking template queries.
Mhm.
And the system would see that, build a dynamic few shot prompt, and write a new query for the query you asked, and execute it against the database.
Mhm.
And many things would still go wrong. Like sometimes the SQL would be erroneous, you have to catch errors, you have to do retries.
Mhm.
So we built all this into a good search experience over Twitter, which we scraped with academic accounts. This was before Elon took over Twitter. So we, back then Twitter would allow you to create academic API accounts,
Mhm.
and we would create lots of them with generating phone numbers, writing research proposals with GPT. And like
Nice.
I would call my projects as like Brin rank and all these kind of things.
Yeah,
And then like create all these like fake academic accounts, collect a lot of tweets, and like basically Twitter is a gigantic social graph, but we decided to focus it on interesting individuals because the value of the graph is still like pretty sparse, concentrated. And then we built this demo where you can ask all these sort of questions, stop like tweets about AI, who like if I wanted to get connected to someone, like I'm identifying a mutual follower, and we demoed it to like a bunch of people like Jan LeCun, Jeff Dean, Andre, and they all liked it because people like searching about like what's going on about them, about people they are interested in, fundamental human curiosity, right? And that ended up helping us to recruit good people because nobody took me or my co-founders that seriously, but because we're backed by interesting individuals, at least they were willing to like listen to like a recruiting pitch.
So what wisdom do you gain from this idea that the initial search over Twitter was the thing that opened the door to these investors, to these brilliant minds that kind of supported you?
I think there's something powerful about like showing something that was not possible before. There's some element of magic to it, and especially when it's very practical too. You are curious about what's going on in the world, what's the social interesting relationships, social graphs. I think everyone's curious about themselves. I spoke to Mike Krieger, the founder of Instagram, and he told me that even though you can go to your own profile by clicking on your profile icon on Instagram, the most common search is people searching for themselves on Instagram.
Oh, that's dark and beautiful.
So it's funny, right?
That's funny.
So our first, like the first release of Perplexity went really viral because people would just enter their social media handle on the Perplexity search bar. Actually, it's really funny. We released both the Twitter search and the regular Perplexity search a week apart, and we couldn't index the whole of Twitter, obviously, because we scraped it in a very hacky way. And so we implemented a backlink where if your Twitter handle was not on our Twitter index, it would use our regular search that would pull up a few of your tweets and give you a summary of your social media profile. And it would come up with hilarious things because back then it would hallucinate a little bit too. So people loved it. They would like, or like they either were spooked by it saying, "Oh, this AI knows so much about me," or they were like, "Oh, look at this AI saying all sorts of shit about me," and they would just share the screenshots of that query alone. And that would be like, "What is this AI? Oh, is this thing called Perplexity?" And you go, what you do is you go and type your handle at it, and it'll give you this thing. And then people started sharing screenshots of that in Discord forums and stuff. And that's what led to like this initial growth when like you're completely irrelevant to like at least some amount of relevance. But we knew that's like a one-time thing. It's not like every way it's a repetitive query. But at least that gave us the confidence that there is something to pulling up links and summarizing it. And we decided to focus on that. And obviously we knew that this Twitter search thing was not scalable or doable for us because Elon was taking over and he was very particular that like he's going to shut down API access a lot. And so it made sense for us to focus more on regular search.
That's a big thing to take on, web search. That's a big move.
Yeah.
What were the early steps to do that? Like what's required to take on web search?
Honestly, the way we thought about it was, let's release this. There's nothing to lose. It's a very new experience. People are going to like it. And maybe some enterprises will talk to us and ask for something of this nature for their internal data. And maybe we could use that to build a business. That was the extent of our ambition. That's why, like, like most companies never set out to do what they actually end up doing. It's almost like accidental. So for us, the way it worked was we'd put this out, and a lot of people started using it. I thought, okay, it's just a fad, and the usage will die. But people were using it like in the time we put it out on December 7, 2022, and people were using it even in the Christmas vacation. I thought that was a very powerful signal because there's no need for people when they hang out with their family and chilling on vacation to come use a product by a completely unknown startup with an obscure name, right?
Yeah.
So I thought there was some signal there, and okay, we initially didn't have it conversational. It was just giving you only one single query. You type in, you get an answer with summary with the citation. You had to go and type a new query if you wanted to start another query. There was no like conversational or suggested questions, none of that. So we launched the conversational version with the suggested questions a week after New Year. And then the usage started growing exponentially. And most importantly, like a lot of people were clicking on the related questions too. So we came up with this vision. Everybody was asking me, okay, what is the vision for the company? What's the mission? Like I had nothing, right? Like it was just explore cool search products. But then I came up with this mission along with the help of my co-founders that, hey, this is it's not just about search or answering questions, it's about knowledge, helping people discover new things and guiding them towards it, not necessarily like giving them the right answer, but guiding them towards it. And so we said we want to be the world's most knowledge-centric company. It was actually inspired by Amazon saying they wanted to be the most customer-centric company on the planet. We want to obsess about knowledge and curiosity. And we felt like that is a mission that's bigger than competing with Google. You never make your mission or your purpose about someone else because you're probably aiming low, by the way, if you do that. You want to make your mission or your purpose about something that's bigger than you and the people you're working with. And that way you're thinking like in it completely outside the box too. And Sony made it their mission to put Japan on the map, not Sony on the map.
Yeah. And I mean, in Google's initial vision of making the world's information accessible to everyone, that was
correct. Organizing information, making university accessible and useful. It's very powerful.
Crazy. Yeah.
Except like, it's not easy for them to serve that mission anymore and nothing stops other people from adding on to that mission, rethink that mission too, right?
Mhm.
Wikipedia also, in some sense, does that. It does organize information around the world and makes it accessible and useful in a different way.
Mhm.
Perplexity does it in a different way. And I'm sure there'll be another company after us that does it even better than us. And that's good for the world.